It keeps me up at night. And it's not exams, it's not student loans.
Oh boy, here we go.
It's the absolute total absurdity of what we actually are.
Okay, that's a heavy way to start things off.
Yeah.
Having an existential crisis over your morning coffee.
No, I'm serious. Just think about it. Everything that makes me me, my memory of my first concert, the stress I feel right now about this recording, my ability to catch a Frisbee.
Without looking like a total idiot.
Right. All of that is just, it's electricity and chemistry sloshing around in this, like, wrinkled walnut inside my skull.
Feel like these grand conscious beings, but really we're just about 3 pounds of wet tissue running on sodium ions.
Exactly. And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the hardware of being human. We've got the research here on neurons, the nervous system, all of it.
But we're not doing a boring anatomy lecture. That's the rule.
Absolutely not. The goal is to figure out how a bunch of tiny cells translate into actual behavior. How do we get from a chemical reaction to, I think I'm in love?
Or, I really, really need a taco.
The big question. So logically, we have to start at the absolute micro level, the building block, the neuron.
The neuron, the unit of the nervous system.
Yeah.
And the numbers here are just, they're staggering. We're talking about 100 billion of them in the brain alone.
100 billion, you can't even picture that. But each one is basically a little messenger.
Right. Its whole job is to receive and send information. I like to think of it less like a cell and more like a person in a huge high-speed game of telephone.
Okay, a gossip network. I like that.
Yeah.
But in telephone, the message always gets messed up. These have to be precise, right?
Oh, very. So if the neuron is the person, the first part are the dendrites. Those are the branchy things.
The little tree branches?
Exactly. They're the ears. They're listening for gossip from thousands of other neurons.
So they're hearing all the rumors. Hey, did you hear about the dopamine release over in Sector 7?
Something like that. And they pass all that info to the soma, which is the cell body. The soma is the decision maker. It listens to all the whispers.
And some are saying pass it on, and some are saying keep it quiet.
Exactly. It's basically a vote. The soma sums it all up, and if the fire votes win, it sends the message down the axon.
Which is the long tail part, the cable.
The fiber optic cable carrying the message away.
Okay, let's pause on the axon for a second, because this is where we get into something called the myelin sheath. And this is huge for anyone listening who's trying to learn a skill.
Right. The little sausage links on the wire.
It really does look like that, but it's actually fatty tissue, and it's all about speed.
Speed and efficiency. It's like the rubber insulation on a charging cable. Without it, the signal leaks and slows down. With it, the signal is contained and it just flies.
And here's the part that blew my mind. When you practice something, like playing guitar, you are physically changing your brain. You're not just learning an idea.
You're literally building up that insulation. You're thickening the myelin sheath around that specific pathway.
So muscle memory isn't in your muscles at all.
Not really. It's super insulated wiring in your brain. That's why a pro pianist's fingers just fly. The signal is broadband, not dial-up.
So talent is basically just really good insulation.
In a big way, yeah.
Okay, so the signal zooms down this insulated cable, it hits the end, but what is the signal? It's not a sound, it's electricity, right? The action potential.
It's a spark. This is the fire part of fire or don't fire. And it works on this really specific rule called the all or nothing principle.
Right. The source material used an analogy for this that, well, it was a toilet.
It sounds a little undignified for the human brain, I know, but it works perfectly.
How so?
Well, a neuron can't kind of fire. It either fires or it doesn't, just like you can't half flush a toilet. Once you push that handle past a certain point, the mechanism takes over and whoosh, it goes.
So there's no weak signal, it's on or off.
Yes.
Binary.
Exactly. The neuron is just sitting there, charged up. It's called its resting potential. Think of it like a drawn bowstring. And when the trigger is pulled, these little gates on the axon fly open.
And the sodium ions rush in.
Yep. Positive sodium ions flood the inside, and that creates the electrical impulse that sheaths down the axon.
And just like the toilet, there's a recharge time.
The refractory period. The neuron has to pump all that sodium back out and reset. It has to refill the tank before it can flush again.
So that's why you can't tickle the same spot over and over instantly. The nerve is literally rebooting.
It's rebooting, it needs a split second.
Okay, so this electrical signal zooms down the axon, it hits the end, but there's a problem. The neurons don't actually touch each other.
Nope. There's a tiny microscopic gap. It's called the synapse.
And electricity can't just jump that gap, can it?
Not usually, no. So the system has to change currencies. It switches from electricity to chemistry.
This is where the neurotransmitters come in.
The chemical messengers. The electrical pulse hits the end of the axon, and it triggers the release of these chemicals. They float across the synapse and land on the dendrites of the next neuron.
But it's not just a random splash, right?
No, it's super specific. It's a lock-and-key mechanism. The receiving neuron has these little receptor sites that are shaped for very specific chemicals. A dopamine molecule only fits in a dopamine receptor.
So it's like a key fitting a specific lock.
And if it fits, it turns the lock. It gets really complex. Turning the lock doesn't always mean fire.
Oh, right. Some are excitatory, so they're yelling, go, go, go.
And others are inhibitory. They're yelling, stop, don't fire, chill out.
So the poor receiving neuron is just sitting there trying to do the math on all these conflicting messages.
It's doing addition and subtraction in milliseconds. A tiny democratic vote happening inside your head constantly.
Okay, and after the message is sent, there's a cleanup process mentioned here. Reuptake.
Very important. You don't want those chemicals just hanging around in the gap, turning the key over and over. So the sending neuron acts like a little vacuum cleaner and sucks the leftovers back up.
And this whole process, the synapse, the lock and key, the reuptake, this seems to be where drugs come in. This is how they hack the system.
It's exactly where they work. They mess with the lock and key.
So they're basically lockpicks for your brain.
You can think of it that way. You've got two main types, agonists and antagonists.
Okay, agonists first.
An agonist mimics a natural neurotransmitter. It's like a master key. It fits the lock and turns it. Opiates, for example, mimic our natural endorphins, so they fit in those receptors and create that feeling of pleasure or pain relief.
Got it. So what's an antagonist?
An antagonist blocks the lock. It fits in the keyhole, but it doesn't turn. It just jams it up.
Like breaking a key off in the lock.
Exactly. So the real chemical can't get in to do its job. The classic example is curare, the poison used on blow darts.
Yeah.
It blocks the receptors for a chemical that tells your muscles to contract. So the muscles never get the move signal. The result is paralysis.
Terrifying. But let's bring it back to something less terrifying. My coffee. Is caffeine an agonist or antagonist?
It's an antagonist, and this is what blows people's minds. Caffeine is basically lying to your brain.
But it feels like it's giving me energy.
I know, but it's not. It's blocking fatigue. There's a chemical called adenosine that builds up all day, and when it plugs into its receptors, it makes you feel tired. Caffeine comes along and just jams those locks.
So the I'm tired message is just getting a busy signal.
Precisely. And the adenosine keeps building up behind that dam. So when the caffeine wears off, the dam breaks, and you crash. Hard.
That explains my 3 p.m. slump perfectly.
Okay, let's zoom out. We've done the cell, the spark, the chemistry. Let's look at the brain itself, the command center. And it's not just one big blob. It's like a house that's had additions built onto it over millions of years.
The deeper you go, the older the room. So let's start in the basement. The brainstem.
The oldest, most primitive part, it handles the absolute basics, the don't die functions.
Like the medulla.
The medulla controls your heartbeat and your breathing, total autopilot. You don't have to think, breathe in, breathe out.
And what about the reticular formation?
Think of it like a bouncer at a club. It decides which sensory information is important enough to get your conscious attention. It controls arousal. If it gets damaged, you can fall into a deep coma.
Wow. Okay, and hanging off the back of the basement is the cerebellum, the little brain.
Which is critical for balance, coordination, and procedural memory, how to ride a bike, that kind of thing.
And it's the first thing to go when you drink alcohol, right?
Yep, it's very sensitive to alcohol. That's why a sobriety test involves walking a straight line. It's really just a cerebellum test.
Okay, so moving up from the basement, we get to the limbic system. This feels like where all the drama happens.
It is. It's the border between the old survival brain and the new thinking brain. It deals with emotion and motivation.
And the star of the show here seems to be the amygdala.
The threat detector. Fear and aggression. It's the part of you that makes you jump when a door slams shut unexpectedly.
There was that really old study, Kluver and Bucy, where they damaged a monkey's amygdala.
Right. And this normally aggressive, fearful rhesus monkey became totally mellow, just completely chill. You could put a snake in its cage and it just wouldn't care.
So no fear. Sounds kind of nice.
Until you realize fear is just data. It keeps you alive. Without it, you don't recognize a threat until it's too late.
Good point. Next door to the amygdala is the hippocampus, the librarian.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's essential for forming new long-term memories.
Like in the movie Memento.
Exactly. Damage your hippocampus. And you can remember your childhood, but you can't remember who you just met 5 minutes ago. You live in a permanent present.
And then there's the hypothalamus, controls hunger, thirst, sex drive. It seems more like the pleasure center.
It is the reward center. And this brings us to that famous slightly disturbing rat study from the 50s.
Oh, the Olds and Miller one. This one stuck with me.
So they put an electrode in a rat's hypothalamus and gave the rat a lever. When it pressed the lever, it got a little jolt of pleasure.
And the rat liked it.
It did nothing else. It ignored food, water, mates.
Yeah.
It just pressed that lever like 7,000 times an hour until it collapsed from exhaustion.
That is dangerously similar to me scrolling on my phone at 2 a.m.
It's the exact same neural pathway. That feeling of just one more video, just one more like, that's your hypothalamus lighting up. It's a survival system that could be hijacked by modern technology.
We're all just rats looking for the lever. Okay, moving upstairs to the penthouse then. The cerebral cortex.
The wrinkly outer layer, the human part of the brain. The wrinkles are just to increase the surface area for more processing power.
It's divided into 4 lobes. At the back, the occipital for vision.
Which is why you see stars when you hit the back of your head.
And then the temporal by your ears for hearing, parietal up top for touch. But the big one is the frontal lobe.
The CEO, the boss, right behind your forehead.
Planning, judgment, impulse control.
It's the part of your brain that tells the limbic system, hey, maybe don't punch that guy. It's the brake pedal.
And the kicker for all the students listening is that this part isn't fully developed until you're about 25.
Which explains so much. Your engine, the limbic system, is fully revved up at puberty. But your steering and brakes, the frontal lobe, are still under construction for another decade.
Okay, so we have the brain, but it can't do anything without the wires connecting it to the meat suit, the nervous system.
Right, and we split that into 2 parts. The central nervous system, which is just the brain and spinal cord, the command center.
And the peripheral nervous system, which is everything else.
All the other wires branching out. And in that system, you have the autonomic system, the automatic pilot.
That's the stuff you don't think about, like digestion.
Thank goodness. And this system has 2 modes that are constantly in a balancing act.
The sympathetic and the parasympathetic.
The gas pedal and the brake.
So the sympathetic is the gas.
Yep, fight or flight. It gets you revved up. Your heart races, your pupils dilate, digestion stops. It prepares you to deal with a threat.
That's the feeling you get when you realize you slept through your alarm for a final exam.
Pure sympathetic activation. But you can't live there. You'd burn out. So that's where the parasympathetic system comes in.
The brake.
Rest and digest. It calms everything back down, slows the heart rate, conserves energy. It brings you back to balance.
So they work together.
They're partners, constantly maintaining homeostasis.
So to pull this all together, we've gone from a single sparking cell to a flush of sodium to a chemical key, all the way up to a system that decides if we run from a bear or eat a sandwich.
It makes it also physical. When you feel anxious, that's not some vague cloud. That's a specific set of neurons firing in your amygdala, triggering a real sympathetic response. Understanding the hardware helps you understand the software glitches.
Which brings me back to my existential thing at the beginning.
How so?
Well, if my thoughts, my loves, my fears, if it's all just sodium ions and chemicals unlocking gates.
You're wondering where you are in all of that. How much free will do we really have?
Yeah. Are we the driver or are we just the car? Are we just incredibly advanced biological robots running on code we didn't write?
That is the big question, isn't it? If you damage the hardware, the person changes. So is the person just the hardware, or is the whole somehow more than the sum of its parts?
I think we'll have to leave our listeners to think about that one. But not too hard. You don't want to overheat your frontal lobe. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.